All right, what's up, guys? What's up, guys? And welcome to a special edition live stream of the Just the Guys podcast. I am joined by my guy Soldiers of Finance, he was previously banned for the show for about 25 minutes. But what's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How you
Awesome.
doing?
I'm doing well, man. I wanted to do this special live stream with you because if you missed the last live stream, guys, you got to go watch it. I actually put out the podcast version yesterday, so it's a condensed version of the live stream we did Saturday. But if you watch the live stream Saturday or watch the podcast version, you notice we had a socialist on, and there was a lot of things that we didn't discuss or got overlooked or it got heated, kind of. But the thing is, throughout the course of that discussion, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about debating, moderating, and to me, that was the biggest takeaway for me and going forward. It also had a renewed focus on what this channel is really supposed to be about. Again, our goal is to bring back shame to what's destroying our communities, and what's destroying our communities is oftentimes rooted in communism, whether it's the destruction of the family, big government interference, the financial crisis that's going on. Like, we want to expose these things because we want people, families, young men, young women, to be able to take action, to one, take care of themselves, but to help make this country, restore this country back to what it is, man. But Tyrone, after watching that, man, what was your thoughts kind of on on the whole debate?
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, and my thrust was to center around economics and the practicality of socialism in a modern economy. And look, I don't know if you guys or if Dayvon understands how agnostic I am to the best system. Okay. So I'm not some guy that's out here that I just felt, because one thing he said was the way you're educated influences your perspectives. And I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've actually done the study. Okay. And do I think that capitalism is the best system for humanity? No. Do I think it's the best system we have right now? Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, so my whole, skilo with him was to just expose the failures of socialism when it comes to actually feeding billions of people.
Yeah.
Okay, basic stuff. It falls down very quickly.
And that's one of the things I really, because you see this kind of renewed push for socialism. Now, it's been planted for years. I mean, we talk about it all the time on the show, where it had this communist subversion. Communism is an in-state goal, right? We know that it's the state of utopia, but in order to achieve that state of utopia, you have to get there through socialism, which the state defines pretty much everything. It controls the means of production, meaning your wages are going to be evenly distributed to everyone according to their needs, right? Is pretty much what you know what socialism stands for. Um, but what was I going to say? Dang it, I was trying to.
Well,
Oh my
another
gosh.
in
Oh no, here, I got it. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
like a lot of these things, like you said, you said you've studied this, right? You've studied this, and a lot of people have studied this, and there's this renewed intellectual focus on socialism because of some of the corporate socialism that we see that is appeared and relabeled as capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like when we redefine what capitalism is, right, and socialism starts to be more attractive. And
No
and
doubt.
here's what I learned, you know, at when I went back and watched everything, it's like we really have to start with a foundation of definitions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the entire conversation, you know, we really didn't define what was what, right? When I opened it up, I did allow him to talk about what he thought socialism and capitalism was, right? But when it came back to it, you know, we never agreed on the definition of each, right? And I think that was a big, you know, kind of a flaw on my part when it came to the discussion. What say you?
No, definitions are absolutely important. And let me say, I'll get a little bit deeper into that, but I think we also need to be 100% honest in, okay, I am doing well under capitalism. Okay, you are doing well under capitalism. I was in an emergency room last night with a family member, and we were in there until the wee hours of the morning. And it became apparent that, because last night was a cold night in Maryland, it became apparent that there were people there who were kind of faking illnesses so that they
Mm-hmm.
could just get out of the cold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the staff kind of knew what was going on. And okay, we'll all play the game for 6 hours. And,
Yep.
those people are not doing well under capitalism for whatever reason. Now, they were middle-aged folk, three middle-aged folk. But if you take some young college kid that's been fed, go to school, you'll get the good job, all of that, and then you graduate and you find that the average age to purchase a home is 40 now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because homes are so expensive. Capitalism is not working for you.
Right.
So the only other option available, right, is to emotionally fall prey to a system that has never worked for anybody other than the Politburo, right? So I get that. And again, we've got to put the onus back on people like Donald Trump, okay, who promised a better economy. It's time to deliver. And there are things that are happening in the economy that, like, gas prices are coming down,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which could be construed as a sign of lower productivity as well. But once you get gas prices to come down, then you can get more economic activity for less because everything is transported, right?
Yep.
So things are happening, but that's a tough sell to a mom and dad who are trying to feed 2.5 kids and their wages have not gone up with inflation. So I just want to acknowledge that if we're being honest, then we have to say that the breakdown of capitalism, which includes a lot of crony capitalism, corporate capitalism that you mentioned, we got to be honest about that piece of it as well.
Well, let's talk about that because this is kind of part of that definition that we really needed to define. I want to play a snippet from the show, and this was around the time where we were talking about what socialist country you would move to, and I want to start with hold on, let me just play this.
Why are we seeing flight and avoidance of this practice?
And so part of what I'm saying is that the societies that I use as examples are not utopias. Part of what I'm saying is that a part of what makes them what they are is because there's a global economic order, the IMF, the WTO, right? The European Union, NATO, right? There are these international forces that agree with the Western capitalist form of governance. They politicize it and make it ideological, and they participate in structuring the global market in a way that puts them at a disadvantage such that they cannot do business naturally with other allies.
So the key I want to point out here is the term capitalist form of governance. And I will argue, and this is what, again, why definitions matter. And oftentimes in debate, words like this kind of get glossed over or, overlooked. And I think this was happening really all night throughout the debate or the discussion or conversation, whatever we want to call it. Because capitalist form of governance. Now, socialism does require a certain form of governance. Capitalism, in my opinion, is not a form of governance. Whereas our U.S. Constitution is there to protect the rights of the individual, not establish the free markets. Now, help if I'm. Let me know if I'm off base there, Tyrone. First off.
No. You see it in China. So China has a socialist, communist form of governance, and then they have a capitalist form of a capitalist economic system. Okay, so they're doing, and you can also argue that the United States has several programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that are socialist in nature, also working within a capitalist system. So you get a mishmash of things going on.
Yeah. So, but I think that's important to define because we're not a capitalist government. Right?
We're not.
It's not a, the U.S. isn't a capitalist government, but and again, this is why I think it's something so important to define. Because our Constitution and all throughout the debate that on Saturday, he was advocating for capitalism. He talked about self what do you call it, self-determination,
Right.
Control of money and markets. All of those things are open free markets, capitalism, free market capitalism. But what we do see is a lot of government influence inside the markets. That's why you see these Congress members, $174,000 a year salary, but leave with millions and millions and millions. Cronyism. Ayn Rand put it best in Atlas Shrugged. When you see the government trying to bail out 2008, when you see the government bailing out corporations, it leads. That is socialism to me.
Oh no, it is. It is. And I detailed. I might have said it on the show then. I think I did. But yeah, every decade or so, you see a transfer of wealth from the taxpayer to some industry. Okay. We saw the biggest wealth transfer, if you take it and extrapolate it over decades, in 1971, when Nixon took us off of the gold standard. Okay. And that basically has given us an environment where we have unbridled inflation. Okay. We pay for that. Then you had long-term capital management. You had the savings and loan crisis. You had the dot-com boom and bust, 2008. And then here recently, the COVID crisis. And that one was a transfer of wealth from the taxpayer to the retailers, to big retail. Okay. The government said Walmart can stay open, but mom and pop has to close. Okay. So with that whole COVID thing was an exercise in authoritarianism, a form of governance, which bled over into our economic system. Okay, so one thing that Dayvon Love said also that I think he kept proving this, that capital, because he mentioned the different organizations throughout the world that are in place to bolster capitalism or a form of it. Yeah. So capitalism is actively competing against socialism, and socialism economically is not winning. Okay. And
So,
we see that.
so I thought that was, I thought that was a great point because, every time he advocated, he talked about Venezuela, the U.S. installing puppet regimes in these particular countries, but the U.S. isn't making people eat their cats and dogs in Venezuela, right?
That's right.
That's not the U.S.
Right.
The U.S. is doing. But when you talk about competition, right, that's something the socialists generally don't like is competition. They say, my argument is, or my question is, because I'm always curious about this stuff. I'm not, I don't pretend to know everything. I don't think I know everything. I'm along for the ride right now. But when you talk about socialism, it just fails every time. And if it was such a good system, it would be able to compete. It would stand on its own. It'd be able to defend itself. Right? If it's such a good system, and like you mentioned, why are people fleeing to run to America or to a capitalist country?
Right.
Why can't they defend that argument? Why is it always we have to take it down?
And again, Haiti is the best example in the Western Hemisphere. So you've got Haiti, which is right next door to Cuba, the socialist utopia. Yet Haitians will brave the shark-infested waters for a much longer voyage to Miami. Okay, to the evil, racist, capitalist United States. And why is that? Because at the base level, they want to be able to eat. Okay, they want to be able to eat. At our core, and a lot of people don't like to admit this, but at our core, we are animals. We're animals. Animals practice a form of capitalism. Okay. The cheetah capitalizes on its speed to go after its prey. The zebra capitalizes on its pattern to confuse predators when they're in a group. They confuse the predator and lessen the likelihood that any given one will, fall prey. Okay. So we see this in nature. And granted, we are an animal that reasons, okay, that is aware of our existence and can question our existence. Okay, perfect. But at the base level, we still need the same things that the animals on the Serengeti need. Okay. Food, some semblance of security or shelter, the base level stuff, before we can then start to think about something like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and one day reach self-actualization. You don't get, it's funny, I saw a picture of Wall Street, the movie. It was a poster yesterday. Gordon Gekko. Have you ever seen where he goes on that monologue, greed is good?
I don't remember it exactly, but
okay.
Yeah, I know.
But basically, to paraphrase what he's saying is, you're not going to get the society you have today unless a lot of someones are ambitious. Okay. And that ambition, a lot of times, it needs to be compensated. People aren't going to do things for nothing. All right. The cheetah again is going to go out there and find prey. Why? Because the reward is being able to bring some of that back to the cubs and perpetuate the species.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we do that in dollars. We don't go out and club a damn woolly mammoth anymore. We
Right.
do this with dollars,
Right.
with Deutschmarks or euros or whatever you want to call it.
And I think it's a great system because then it allows you as an individual, right, to allow the people that can do those things, far as hunting or fishing or creating. It allows those people to do those things, specialize in those things, while you then get to realize the things that you're good at, right? And you can capitalize on that. So that capitalism, you talk about Maslow hierarchy of need, that does help you realize that self-actualization, because you aren't worried about having to necessarily go out and hunt, right? You can like you can then we can be on a podcast, right? We can do other things that we may be good at because there are others in the community that they're getting paid what they're worth, their time and efforts don't go unrecognized, and it's because they're good at something, I'm good at something, we can barter, we can trade, and we use like you said, the dollars for now to do that. There's a couple comments up here. He said, no, but the U.S. put dictators in charge that will make citizens eat cats and dogs when there is no food left. It's interesting because Venezuela had an election last year and ignored the results. So if the U.S. was installing a regime, I mean, it failed. All right. Yeah. Maduro said, hey, I don't care what the election results said, I'm staying in power. He completely ignored it.
And some folk act like the United States invented this, installing puppet regimes long before the United States of America was even a thought. This is something that occurs throughout human history. And when you encounter people that approach it as though the United States invented this, they're the worst at it. You've encountered a person that's either being disingenuous or somebody who does not have a grasp of history. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is human nature. This is what we do, unfortunately. Yep. Okay. The other thing about it is, one thing that I think a lot of proponents of socialism ignore is its propensity to support a form of slavery. And I'll give you the perfect example. You hear a lot of socialists and leftists in general. They champion government health care. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Britain is an ocean away. I get it. But Canada is not. Okay, you can just drive up there and you can actually speak to people who will tell you that I waited in line for 6 hours to get a primary care physician. I was on the list for 6 years. These are things that are literally happening. Okay. When we do the Soldiers of Finance live streams, we have a couple of soldiers that are U.S. citizens now, but they immigrated from Great Britain. And you will sit and you will wait for serious procedures, mm-hmm. because this is how these national healthcare systems, that's how they have to do it. It's not malicious. It's just that it doesn't work well. Yep. Okay. So when we talk about free healthcare, healthcare is a right. It isn't. If healthcare were a right, we'd all be healthy.
Yep. Yeah.
But when you talk about free healthcare, all right, so who provides it? Who provides the free healthcare? When I need my appendix out, if that's a right, then that means I was born with my own personal surgeon who is just committed to working on my behalf, right? What do we compensate? So that surgeon's not supposed to be compensated for that expertise?
Right,
The
right,
people that manufactured the tools to open and close your body, they're not supposed to be compensated?
right.
Because if they're not, then they won't do it. Okay. You won't have people going into medicine if there's no reward for doing that. Okay. And I ask these people all the time, where do you work? Are you willing to go there daily for free?
Right, right. I mean, the clearest example, though, just what's going on in New York right now. I mean, Mamdani has promised free buses, right? So what happens to the bus driver? If the bus is free, I mean, you're basically discrediting and diminishing the role of the bus driver. He should just do it out of the goodwill of his heart. He loves just driving in this particular pattern for 8 hours a day. Right. It's just like, to me, like, pay the bus driver, man. Pay the bus driver. Right. You're right. Cause that does degrade down into slavery.
Right.
Cause eventually you're no longer getting paid what the job is worth. I mean, this is just another logical path into that. Everyone getting paid a minimal amount. I mean, if the cab driver and the doctor are getting paid the same, what's the point of being a doctor? What's the point of having that specialized knowledge, right? What's the point of having that skill if you cannot capitalize on it? So there we go. We're all equal. And then somebody has to control or dictate who does what at that point. When your skill or when your asset no longer becomes valuable, you have to be forced to do something. Right?
Exactly. Or when your skill, because you see this argument in the minimum wage discussions that we have in the country. All right. I was a minimum wage employee, as were most Americans at some point. Now, I worked in high school. I worked at McDonald's. And at that time, the minimum wage was $4.25 an hour. And that's what I made. Because you could literally, the manager of that McDonald's could literally, there was a bus stop right in front of the McDonald's. They could go out on that bus stop and everybody there, whether it be 10 people or 30, could fry a hamburger. There's no real, this is what they used to do back in the day at McDonald's. They would, once they hired you, they would put you in the back room with some videotapes, 2 hours worth of videotapes, flip the hamburger. Okay, I saw my mom do that, so that makes sense. Dip the fries, put the onions, and then boom, 2 hours later, you're ready to go. Okay, all right, going back to our example of a surgeon. 12 years later, you're ready to go. Okay, all right, so there's a lot of specialization. You'll notice that with specialization, compensation increases. Okay. Instead of being honest with people and telling them that, because I don't know where this happened, but none of the kids at the McDonald's I worked at thought that this is what we were going to be doing to support families. Okay. We were all either on our way to college, the military. We had a plan, right? There were adults that worked there, but they were managers. All right. And one in particular, this guy named Terrence, his thing was, I'm trying to own my own McDonald's. He was a manager. He was in their program. Okay. So he had a plan that was beyond minimum wage. Okay. So I don't want to go off on a tangent with that, but we're not being honest with people and saying, all right, here's what you need to do to compete in the capitalist system, and selling people on this idea of, oh, we're gonna raise your minimum wage. All right, well, who wins with that? Well, the unions, because they create these closed shops, and then they could charge you more dues, higher percentage of your dues, and the IRS. And at the end of the day, the people that got their minimum wage raised in California can no longer afford to eat at Chipotle.
That's crazy. I want to put up this comment too because you work a lot in healthcare. Because again, this is one of those arguments of against capitalism, which are valid, right? Why should doctors in hospital be allowed to mark a bandage up 200%?
That's a great question, and you're absolutely right to ask the question. One of the reasons why they're able to get away with it is what we talk about all the time: a lack of price transparency in healthcare. All right, and so that is totally antithetical to true capitalism. If I'm going to engage in a transaction, I have to know the price, right?
Yep.
But how many times do you seek healthcare and you don't find that price out until after you've consumed the service? So it's at that point where they can say, "Oh, yeah, Band-Aid was $20," and it's like, that's wrong. So I'm glad the commenter, I missed the name of the commenter, but
Let me see if I can get it back.
I'm glad that that's a perfect example of crony capitalism, because if you go to 7-Eleven and everything has a damn price on it, why doesn't the same principle work when you are seeking healthcare?
Right.
Okay. We should not accept that. So the commenter is absolutely right to question that.
Yeah. So and I think that's part of the discussion that we kind of get overlooked on. Like we understand that capitalism, and we tried to make that clear on the debate on the conversation with Dayvon. Like we understand capitalism isn't perfect, and there's not going to be a system out there that's perfect because we're all human and we're trying to come up with these things. But you know, it is the best system that we know that allows the individual to achieve that self actualization.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, socialism again forces people into a certain to do. So the argument for socialism oftentimes centered around the Nordic countries, right? Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because they do have a big social safety net, but they are a capitalist economy. And as a matter of fact, if you go back and look at Sweden's history, IKEA left the country because they became socialists, or they were implementing socialist policies, right? So IKEA left, and after the tax, all the people left and things like that. Well, the taxes were going away, the country was going down. They embraced capitalism. Now, again, the proponents of Sweden again talk about the unions and all the other things that appear to be socialist, but the unions even operate differently in countries like Sweden, where they're advocates for the market versus the employee. So the unions in Sweden, the Nordic countries, do not fight for higher wages that will destroy an economy. They actually fight to ensure that the economy or that market can maintain its existence, and fair wages, sure, but not just these arbitrary hikes and demands. They're more on the side of the capitalism side versus the socialist, or let's push for more higher wages regardless of where the money comes from. They're more on the capitalist side. And with education, they have nationwide school choice. You can send your kid to school anywhere in the country. You can get them there. I mean, so they have school choice, something that, it's not necessarily a socialist capitalist discussion, but they have these principles of open markets. And so the schools are basically participating in the free markets by competing for students, and the parents are able to then determine where they want to send their kids to school. So you're getting more capitalism in countries like Sweden and Norway than what you see now in the U.S.
Yeah. And the other unique thing about them, and they've actually come out several times and said, we have market economies. And they've said this in response to a lot of Americans and
Bernie
Europeans saying
Sanders.
they're socialists. But they always make it clear. They're like, hold on. We have I think they do that so vociferously because they don't want capital to get the idea that there's something they're not, so they make that abundantly clear. The other thing about them, 4 countries, 28 million people. Okay. So again, like you said, they're practicing capitalism. And I think the other thing is there are various forms of capitalism that are, being practiced out there. But China, when they looked at it and they said, hey, how do we feed 1 billion people? How do we do this? And they said, all right, we got to have a form of capitalism. So even Mao's China admitted this and is practicing this and is doing so in many respects quite well, such that in many respects, they are poised to take the lead in a lot of industries, especially AI, in the very near future.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say this because this always strikes me as funny. I'm a big Star Trek fan, right? So I was having a discussion years ago with another Star Trek fan who is more left-leaning. And he was saying, hey, look, man, socialism works perfectly. You just got to have it. Socialism works in that universe. I said, well, a couple of things. Number one, that universe is post a nuclear apocalypse. Okay. All right. That reset mankind's ideas about, the purpose of life. Number one. But number two, there's a device in the Star Trek universe called the replicator. Okay. And it basically, you can walk up to a replicator and say, I would like a porterhouse steak, mashed potatoes and gravy, and a Guinness, and it'll create it out of thin air. Okay. That plot device has made that society not socialist, but post scarcity. Okay. Two different things.
Yep.
So, and to his credit, once I explained that to him, he said, okay, well, yeah, it isn't socialist. It's post scarcity.
Yeah.
So, and it's only post scarcity because of this fictional device that'll give you whatever the hell you want. Okay.
Yep.
So I just like to put that out there that you look at these utopias in film or in fiction, and you why can't we do that? Well, there's some element in there that's making that possible.
So we talk about why can't we do that, right? Because then, like a lot of socialist advocates from the intellectual stage, so that the intellectuals, they're planting the seeds for the mind, but then you get the revolutionaries that are actually wanting to do things about it. Like, how do we? Because if we're fighting for that, why does it have to be? Why isn't that the progress, right? I'm not really asking the question right. Because these, why is it that you have to tear down capitalism in order for socialism to win, instead of just beat capitalism for socialism to win?
Because Marx said criticize everything. Marx's ideology was let's destroy. Let's destroy this. Okay. Mao also had that same philosophy during the Cultural Revolution. Pol Pot, all right, took it to the nth degree. That whole, and it comes from Marx. Marx said, let's criticize everything. Everything. Everything means even those aspects of society that may be working well. Okay. Mao took that to mean let's even get rid of our history. Okay. So that's where that spirit comes from. It is a direct link back to Marx and what he espoused. And if you see what happened after that, I mean, they destroyed everything. They didn't allow the Romanovs to go off into exile. They killed every last one of them. Okay.
Right, and that's the thing, man. Like we've seen this time and time again, but somehow it becomes intellectually the answer intellectually, right? And I think you were making the point about that, you know, the intellectual side, so the academic side versus the pragmatic side. Like, is this practical? Can this actually, you know, we can have all these fantasies, like you can draw the best house on the paper, but do the materials, and one, do we have the materials to build it? Are they structurally sound? I mean, there's so many drawings that I've drawn, you know, as a kid, that it just doesn't stand. It just doesn't hold weight. Why do you think we see this kind of like just people stuck on the academic side versus being academic and practical?
Yeah. Socialism works well in the faculty lounge. It works well in the faculty lounge because these professors, they don't have to get out there and compete in the real capitalist world. Okay, so they can come up with all these high-minded ideals, and if they have tenure, they're living high off the hog, and you know, at some college that's got some $1 billion endowment, they're in a bubble. Okay. The other thing that capitalism does well is that it recognizes human nature. Okay. It recognizes greed. It recognizes ambition. It recognizes a need for liberty. Capitalism really does a good job of at least recognizing those traits in humanity. We just come off of Thanksgiving, right? The early Americans, the early colonists, they tried socialism, and they damn near all starved. Okay, that's a story for another day, but they did try it. So humanity is not, you know, yeah, we're communal, okay, but when you put folk in a group and say, okay, you're all equal, you're lying to people. But Tyrone, all men are created equal. Yes, all men are created equal. And you know what? Right after that inception point, things start to diverge. All right. Some people are born to high IQ multimillionaires. Some people are born to drug addicted women. Okay. And that's unfortunate, but it's real life. So when you put these communes together, it broke down over the 60s too. You got so many former hippies that say, hey man, that movement was such a joke, because if you were lazy in the group, you were still considered equal. All right. So if I got more all right, Giovanni pays more attention to the ins and outs of YouTube than Tyrone does. And therefore, Giovanni is part of an organization that has a channel on YouTube that is coming up on 250,000 subscribers. Okay. Now Tyrone could sit down and, you know, delve into it as deeply, but he's not equal to Giovanni on that. And okay, that's just the way it is. Okay. Now, the flip side is this. Tyrone could also say, you know what, I'm going to commit myself as be as dedicated as Giovanni is, and I still might not get the results. Socialism promises to create equal outcomes, and you can't do that. Nothing in this life is guaranteed. So a lot of this is just growing the hell up and understanding life is not fair. Okay. Would I like a Learjet? You damn right I would. Not have to wait in the lines and all that stuff. Do I have one? No. Am I ever going to get one? Probably not. Okay. And that's just the way it is. Okay.
So you make a great point though, because talking about growing up, right? You have to grow up, and at some point you have to realize everything isn't just going to be given to you. Despite despite wanting it just to be given to you, not wanting to have to work for something. I mean, everyone likes a gift at every now and then, but I want to see something that I built with my own hands. I want to see something that, I mean, that's just maybe that's a masculine thing, or maybe that's a man thing. Because I want to see that. To me, that's an expression of God's love, right? Or God's power. Like, he gave me a certain set of skills, and part of my purpose is to realize what those skills are, and to build something with those gifts that he gave me, right? There's a lot of different ways where I can go, and where socialism negates all that. That's why I do think, socialism, communism are anti-God at their root, because they don't want the individual to realize the God-given gifts and talents that they have. But I want to play a little bit of something, because we talked about growing up, and it's the socialism always leading to destruction. So again, we had Dayvon Love on the podcast on Saturday, and this was something that came up, and he admitted to it.
That makes it so that these countries.
All right, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
So pretty much his whole argument about capitalism throughout the entire night was that socialism only fails because capitalist nations suppress it, and two, we don't know the history of these ancient civilizations because they practice some form of socialism or something like that, because we're not taught or we're not educated in those ancient civilizations where socialism, or what we call socialism, was prevalent. But I want to talk right here. I want you to get to respond, because you actually weren't on the show at this point, because this is where he admitted what the aim, or what his aim, or what he would like to see.
Mm-hmm.
Countries, when they embark.
That's not an answer.
That's an answer, but you don't have to like it. And it's fine. You don't have to like it.
I got you on that. His answer is he has to turn America socialist, so that power is no longer impacting other.
Exactly.
Oh no, that's good. No, I'm down for revolution.
Order,
the American
socialist. You think you're going to be in charge of it.
And also, what he would do different is he would topple the biggest capitalist engine in the world in order to make sure, and that's how socialism will thrive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You want
to. Dude, I finally figured.
All right. So you see there. I wish Gimpy would have let him finish his statement, because he did say it. It's kind of in the background, but
yeah, I heard him. He
said, because the U.S. is dominating, the only way to get it is to get socialism to work in the future is to dismantle the capitalism, dismantle the country. Because the question was, what socialist country would you move to?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is none. I want to see America socialist.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you respond when you see that, man? And yeah, just your response.
Well, I think honestly, that's a tacit admission of the fact that socialism isn't palatable enough for him to actually live under those conditions now. Okay, no one's asking you to give up your United States citizenship, but I would think it would be a hell of a testament for any avowed socialist in America to go and actually live under those principles. Okay, and I mean, you can go to Cuba. It's right next door. Okay, you could do that, and drive around in a 1950s Chevy if you like. Why not? So I think when it comes to a recognition of the quality of life that you are afforded under capitalism, and look, yes, there are very poor people here in America, but poverty is relative.
Yep.
When you look at Indonesia, for example, we did a little mini documentary on the Soldiers of Finance channel about this landfill that is so large, it's like a city, okay, where people are so poor, they live on the landfill. They take debris, build their houses, okay, they find food. It's a little ecosystem. We don't see that in America. Okay. So yes, poverty is here. True. There are some people in Appalachia and in the South who still don't have indoor plumbing. That's true. Okay. But we don't see the type of grinding poverty. And another thing about America, and this is true, I know a lot about West Virginia. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so West Virginia had coal mining, tanning, not the cosmetic tanning, but leather.
Yeah.
And timber, big industries, right? Which all have been kind of decimated, leaving West Virginia in a real economically depressed situation. But when you talk to people from West Virginia, they say, I love the state, but I had to move. I had to travel to get to another area to get some opportunity. Okay. Those people in Indonesia at that landfill, they don't have that opportunity. Okay. There are caste systems.
Yep.
There are caste systems among the same nationality of people. Okay. Like in India, you have the untouchables. And they will never be allowed to rise above that caste. Okay. In America, you can come from North Avenue and Dukeland Streets in West Baltimore and end up representing a Fortune 500 company in Paris, France. You can do that. I have done that. Okay. So there is mobility. There is economic mobility. Do we need to fight like hell to preserve that capitalist characteristic? Absolutely. Capitalism has always been a battle. You go back to the early American multimillionaires, Carnegie and his boy Frick, and how they actually had wars with the unions. Okay, people dying. Okay, so it's always been a battle, and we don't want to see that again. But we do have to always say, hey, look, capitalism is a symbiotic system. It is not just supposed to benefit the Walmarts of the world or the Apples of the world. It's also supposed to benefit the people that make those products possible, the workers.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about I think the whole thing with judo, right? The art for the fighting martial art judo, of using momentum against you, right? Because I think initially we think, people should be able to earn what they want to earn, have a dignity of life. I mean, they use these word dignity, so we can agree that you should be able to achieve that self-actualization. We diverge when we talk about how, but because again, I mean, we're being repetitive here, because there has been so much corporate welfare or cronyism, like that's where the problem to both sides or all sides becomes prevalent. But to root it out, I think that becomes the big challenge. And you talked about fighting, right? With the fight for capitalism, and to me, it's not necessarily a fight for capitalism, per se. It's a fight for maintaining individual liberty, individual rights, free markets, and that does require, to me, a separation of corporate and government. You have to, in order to protect individual rights, individual liberties, you have to divorce these corporations, big corporations, from government. I saw a comment earlier that said, it's so weird. Socialism is perfectly legal. Join a co-op, create a worker-owned business. And it's interesting because we have a lot of those in Baltimore. Well, not a lot. I can't say a lot because they all fail. But they do exist in Baltimore. Red Emma's bookstore. I'm not necessarily here to advocate for them, but Red Emma's, they were trying to expand and then quickly realized that property is hard to maintain. And also they had this kind of like pay it forward, so you didn't necessarily have to pay for food when you went there, like if you were poor or whatever. Like, so I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to be generous, but you have to have money. And the other part about this, right, I find very interesting. A lot of these movements, for socialism, they're always funded by a capitalist. Somebody had to give them some money, because in order for you to sit here 8 hours a day as your job advocating for the destruction of capitalism, there's not a product or service that you're providing. You're not adding anything to the marketplace, but you're able to sustain yourself based on someone else who did provide for the marketplace. I mean, think, what Bill Gates has donated to. I mean, people across the world know Windows, right? Microsoft. And if he didn't do that, he wouldn't have the ability to do his philanthropic efforts. But guys, thank you all for joining us today. I actually want to. I think that was it. No, what else you got, man? What else you got, man? What's on your mind, man?
No, this has been a good discussion. I will just take the opportunity to say on the Soldiers of Finance channel, we got a live stream coming up at 1:00, and it touches on something you said here. We're looking at the demonic influence in American culture and government. Okay. I think everybody has in the back of their mind this notion that things have really gotten strange. Okay. And we have a lot of figures in the entertainment industry espousing darkness. Okay. We've got some legislative actions that have happened in certain states that people are like, whoa. Okay, the Baphomet statue being one of them. Okay, so we're going to and this is going to be the first of us periodically looking at this and examining this. Has the pit been opened? And do we have literal demonic forces sitting in legislatures throughout local, state, federal, at executive positions throughout this country? And what are we consuming in terms of entertainment? That new Stranger Things, I watched maybe about 40 minutes of it, and I just can't get with it. Okay, so we're gonna get into it today at 1:30.
Yeah, man. You doing a live stream?
I am. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Man, hopefully I could pop in on that one, man, because I do have a lot of thoughts on that, man.
Okay.
I do have a lot of thoughts on that. Hopefully I can pop in. But I want to see if we can respond to this comment. Capitalism is not equal to individual liberty. LMAO, you have been brainwashed. What's your response to something like this?
Well, it's just one sentence that I'm not even going to count the LMAO, you have been brainwashed, because that's just that's just invective, and I don't take that seriously. Capitalism is not equal to individual liberty. I would agree with that because individual liberty predates the notion of capitalism. So if the commenter is trying to suggest that we are suggesting you need capitalism to be a sovereign and free human being, I don't think that I said that, and I know you didn't say that. So I'm not sure where they're getting that notion from.
Well, I was saying what I said was in terms of what we see with this corporate welfare and the way government has gotten involved with business, big business. I think, to me, that is like an individual liberty because now you're restraining the individual to achieve self-actualization. I mean, part of individual liberty is, the pursuit of, freedom, right to, bear arms, but that's to protect yourself. But, practice your faith, pursuit of happiness, right? Being able to participate in the markets as your will, right? And I think corporate welfare oftentimes restricts that, right? Because when you have Walmart competing against the mom and pops, and how much of the mom and pops have been shut down because of, again, the influence of government with big business, right? Now, if it was a natural thing, fine, right? That's how it would go naturally. But what we see is people or corporations in bed with government, which then restricts, me doing something.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. So sure. I mean, governments have proven time and time again throughout human history that they can act to quash individual liberty. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But in terms of capitalism being a prerequisite for liberty, we didn't suggest that.
No. But but the point of today, right? Definitions do matter, right? We want to be able to make sure, especially when what I learned from the debate is you got to start with some definitions, basic framework. And, I invite anyone to come on the show. I invite Dayvon to come back if he'd like to discuss further, because I know there were some elements of the conversation that we didn't really get to hash out. But the big thing is, we do need to define these things because we're not really talking on the same page if we don't. And but I learned a lot throughout this conversation with him. Learned a lot talking with you. And my goal is to share. But again, our goal here at Just the Guys podcast is to bring back shame, because it is, our belief, communism is destroying a lot of what we, have built, have created, and it's we have to restore, our the American way. Like, to me, it's just that simple. That's simple. Any closing thoughts, and then we're gonna get out of here, man.
No. I would again just take this opportunity to do a shameless plug for Soldiers of Finance channel. We're diversifying our focus and our topics. Okay, we really like this program we're going to have today. We're getting into the weeds of some things.
Right on. So let us know too in the comments if you like the vertical format. Like StreamYard now allows you to do 2 streams. I see a lot of you are on the vertical format of the show that you're commenting on. Whether you prefer the vertical format or like the horizontal format, for the production. So let us know in the comments what you guys think about that. I should have asked that earlier, because again, I am one of the producers of Pop and Politics. I do all the tech stuff. Like I'm, pretty much built the entire thing. I built the studio that we in. I built all the assets and the graphics and all that stuff. I built the framework for all the shows. So just let us know what you think about how StreamYard works. And yeah, just give us that feedback, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But if nothing else, guys, remember, only monkeys litter. We're here to bring back Shane. Peace.